blockchain team. I'm also the chief architect of E-Trade Connect, which I guess got announced just last month. Before that, I was one of the founding fathers of Hyperledger Fabric, and I was also its first product manager. And I joined PN about 2 years ago, and I'm seeing a lot of exciting things to happen. Sabrina.
For those who weren't here earlier, I'll be introducing myself. I'm at Unblock, which is a subsidiary of Line that's focusing on the linked token economy. I'm also heading the investments. So we started Unblock Ventures earlier this year to invest in early stage blockchain companies.
Hi everyone, my name is Kevin Fun. So I'm the CEO of VChain, so I'm basically in charge of the operation as well as business development in VChain. Before actually I joined VChain in 2016, I worked for PricewaterhouseCoopers as a cybersecurity consultant for over 12 years. So I got this chance to get into blockchain space when I was in PwC. So and during early of this year, I decided to just join this industry at a full-time basis. So it's been very exciting so far.
Great. Good morning, my name is Britt Blakeney and I'm Head of Innovation and Ecosystems at DBS Bank here in Hong Kong. I joined DBS in April, and prior to that, all of my experience has been in the tech industry in one way or another, working at startups or large internet and media companies in the US. Thanks for having me.
And I'm Benny, Senior Editor at Coins Network. We're a crypto media company that's based here in Hong Kong. So let's get started. I guess the premise, we know that in different industries there's already, people investigating different approaches to implement blockchain to current business, future business. I guess in your opinion, this is going to be open-ended, do you agree with the statement that blockchain is still in its early phases? It's for anyone.
I'll start. So I think I kind of covered that in my speech. I do believe it's in the early stage because there are still a lot of things that need to be sorted out before it could be massively adopted in the business world. In some of them are technology. From technology perspective, a lot of people are talking about the scalability of this technology. Maybe for certain use cases, for example, like for payments, is the technology itself is not there yet. And also privacy is also one of the concerns from the enterprise perspective, because while you're using for example, a public blockchain infrastructure, if somehow someone can associate your identity with a certain address on the blockchain, people may be able to get some business insight out of those transactions. These are the things we need to solve. I think apart from the technology perspective, there are also other things like regulatory compliance as well as technology standards. Because when we talk to enterprises about, hey, we are going to implement a blockchain application for you, a lot of time they want to do it, but they also, at the same time, they have concerns because there's certain uncertainty about a traditional enterprise entering into blockchain, like how I'm going to, because to use certain blockchain application, maybe it will be related to cryptocurrency, and then enterprise, they are kind of hesitating about how I'm going to keep them. How can I secure them? How can I book them on my financial ledger? So I think the industry still lacks a lot of the infrastructure service, as well as the policies and regulations around it. But we do believe that with more and more applications of the technology is going to facilitate the change.
Yeah. I would definitely agree with you on that. I think although the technology itself has been around for at least 10 years now, I think it's still very much in its infancy in terms of education. As you were mentioning, Kevin, I think it's still that there's a lack of knowledge, a general understanding that it is actually more than just Bitcoin. There are many different applications for blockchain, and really at its core, it's just a system of trust. And that it is an enabler of trust, and it also makes any sort of transaction activity much more efficient. So I think there are so many different applications of the technology. I think your example with the carbon footprint, the carbon token was really, really interesting. I think there are actually some great applications for, in terms of sustainability, in terms of supporting the environment, in terms of, I mean, there are many applications that apply to our everyday lives. The stance of an incumbent bank is that we are very much educating our own people internally on the technology and really moving and challenging all of our business units to actually explore different ways that they could possibly adopt the technology. And then finally, I'd say, you know, we worked with Frank and the Ping An team, and we're one of the banks participating in the E-Trade Connect platform. So I think that's a huge step for Hong Kong in terms of applying blockchain in a much broader scale.
To maybe add on to what Kevin just said, I think at the technology level, yes, it's still in the early stages. There's no clear protocol winner yet. I mean, I think there's going to be space for more than one, obviously, but I get to talk to a lot of projects. We're still kind of in the thinking stage. We've been shopping around for protocols, try different things, find out that there's technology hurdles in terms of TPS, scalability, in terms of economics sometimes too, because, for example, the way like a gas fee is built in to certain protocols can hinder things like microtransactions, for example. So I still see a lot of trial and error in this space. So the technology layer, things are not stable yet. And I think we'll have players, I think I mentioned that earlier, that will cover the key modular components like KYC, like identity management, like wallets, etc. That will, I think, consolidate within the next year or two.
I think I have to disagree a little bit here. Yes and no. Here's the reason why. I mean, it's pretty easy to say why. I think, yes, it's still in the early stage, but I'm going to emphasize on the no part. So people have been saying this since, what, 2015. Like, it's in the early stage, and we're going to wait for another 2-3 years. And we're in 2018, entering 2019. How long do you think the money going to stay? If we're going to continue this discussion in 2020, I don't think there's going to be much discussion there. There will be a lot of investment rather than investment. So it's true that there are still a lot of spaces that still hasn't been discovered, but you gotta have something to believe. You gotta start to show promises now, rather than wait for 2 years later, saying we still got 2-3 years for the things to get mature. As far as we're doing things in Ping An, I think E-Trade Connect definitely we're gladly working with DBS and all other banks. I think it's a major step forward for Hong Kong, and it's a major step forward for the blockchain community. For one reason, it's no longer a platform. It's actually a network connecting many platforms. DBS is a platform, and the other banks has their own platform. We're just using blockchain to connect all the platforms together. Why this is important? Because a lot of people say, build an application and say, hey, we use a blockchain for that. But guess what? I can also use a database. If you care about immutability of the record, you should consider digital signature. It's been there for 30 years. It's very reliable. And if you care about traceability, guess what? You can do a database doing exactly that, and probably more efficient. And if you're talking about improving efficiency, I hear they're saying things, some of the things that we use a blockchain, we can improve the efficiency, reduce things in seconds. If I use a P2P connection and a database, I can probably reduce that to milliseconds, or a fraction of a second. The reason I'm bringing this out is you gotta start to do things to actually show promise. I mean, rather than wait for 2 and 3 years. So yes, it's still in the early stage because there's still a wide space that is still under discovery, but it's time to actually show promise. So that's the no part. Thank you.
No, I mean, I'm glad that it's kind of split now. But I guess seeing that in this space, things happen very rapidly. You know, we look 1 year down the road, 2 years down the road. What do you see in terms of blockchain adoption, in terms of that timeline? Like, how much adoption do you think for applications we'll be seeing within 1 to 2 years?
Well, maybe I can speak to that, because that's what my company's trying to do right now, is really to spread the adoption to its user base, right? So I know that we have a pretty aggressive pipeline. I think this is a fairly short-term goal for a company like mine, and we're not the only technology company that's looking at mass adoption. So I want to say within a year, or yeah, probably within a year, you'll start seeing real mass adoption.
I think I totally agree. I think just going to follow up from my previous comment. I think we're going to see less applications that you basically should use a database or business rules for. Because by the end of the day, I think for businesses, including Ping is also a really big business, right? I think the business people care more about revenue than cost. I mean, cost is important, but if you look at the model, because by the end of the day, you want to improve your bottom line, which is the profit. The profit equals the revenue minus the cost. You better find a way. It's a much better story to find a way to improve the revenue than try to do something and explain to people saying this is going to reduce cost. Because guess what? Nobody's going to believe this story. No, not really. Because people are going to, like in a lot of things in the blockchain space, in the 2 and 3 years, I will see less. I will see real applications, a real blockchain adoption start to proliferate. What I mean real is the ones that actually has a business value, provide a business value, and are actually going to improve the revenue. And I think we will see more of these things to start to proliferate, and we're going to see a lot of database solutions or the blockchain solution are better fitted with the database die down. I think that's what we're going to see in 2 and 3 years. The money is not going to, you're not going to see a lot of free cash flows into the things that doesn't really make much sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to scale tremendously in the next couple of years, especially for us on our institutional side. It's just very clear and easy to see the applications there. We're working already with many of our institutional banking clients. They've expressed an interest in speeding up their supply chain, making it more efficient, cutting out the costs, cutting out some of the middlemen, helping them in terms of KYC, in terms of validating suppliers in a much more efficient way, or even not having to really go through and redo all of that KYC. It's already there on the blockchain in many instances. So there are many, many applications. We're working, recently we announced we're working with a company called Agricor to speed their whole supply chain process, get it down to about 20 days, which is still, not ideal, but it's much faster than it was before, from farmer to customer. We're working with a company called SB Group in terms of renewable energy certificates. So there are many, many examples that are coming out from the institutional side. So I think that's where we're going to start seeing real tremendous scale. But then, as I said, we're looking for all different kinds of applications across the bank.